Good morning, Yesri. It's science time. So we're going to talk about the effect that we have on our world. Now, we can have a good effect on our world. That is like taking care of the forest, don't let the people cut off too many trees, take care of our environment by taking care of the animals, looking after animals, keeping them safe, specifically endangered species. Um, and we also need to take care of our environment by not messing too much with plastic, throw away our rubbish where it's not supposed to be. That's all good things that we're trying to do, but we're also doing bad things to our environment. And it's just amazing with this whole COVID-19 that's been going on, how the environment changed because of the people being in lockdown. I've seen pictures of the channels in Venice that's now clean. Suddenly people can see fresh water. Some people posted photos of lakes in America that suddenly they can see the sunrise and the sunset over the lakes. Suddenly the smell changes everywhere because there's no humans that's polluting the whole environment, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, one of the main things, a very important part of our daily life is fuel, and we get our fuel from oil. Now, you can drill oil from the sea, or they can drill it on land. We find it under the sea, and then they drill it by the oil, using the oil rigs that we sometimes see in the harbor, where they need to do maintenance. So it's not something strange to us, although we don't mine our own oil. Now, oil comes from fossil fuels. That means the earth is making it by itself. It's not us making the oil. We just mine the oil and then we use it and we make fuel, and we use oil for many different things. But now, if they mine the oil in one place in the sea, it needs to get to factories, it needs to get to refineries, and you can't fly oil. I mean, that's going to be a disaster. And if you can just imagine the oil tankers and the big boats that you sometimes see containing lots of stuff, um, all the millions of kiloliters that the tank is keeping, you can just imagine what big boats they need. Sometimes the oil has been drilled out close to shore so they can use pipelines, but that's not the norm. So they need to transport, and then the obvious way is using oil tankers. Now, they need to be very, very careful, but things can happen and go badly wrong, and then they cause large oil spills. Now, I don't know if you guys can remember earlier in this year, I think it was rather last year, that there was an oil spill on the sea close to Long Beach. And because of the waves, the water just come on the shore, and we can get pictures like this. It might look very nice. We get pictures like this. It might look nice. It's wow, look at that. But it's lying on the surface. Now let me quickly show you, and if you can remember what we did when we did the density of matter. If I take a normal glass cooking oil and I just pour a bit, keep an eye on the glass, pour a bit of the oil, eventually it will go to the surface and it will cover the whole surface. Now that's going to cause a lot of problems because yes, the oxygen in the water, the surface is totally covered with oil, so the animals underneath the oil layer is not going to get enough oxygen. And the animals, for instance, the birds on the top, that's floating on the waves, that's diving into the water, our pelicans, our seagulls, flamingos, all of those birds get infected, and then it causes a huge problem. Now, they have many ways that they try to clean the mess. One of it's this picture that I just showed you. And what they do is they put a rope, they call it a boomer, and they sort of try to catch the top layer. Now, that is sometimes quite successful. But there's so many oil on the surface that it causes this to happen. If you can look at the top picture there, the bird gets all covered with oil there at the bottom. What they also try to do is it's small little wooden blocks. It's more a sponge type of thing that they throw on top of the water, and that's what this picture at the bottom is illustrating. They put the sponge-like stuff on the water, and then it absorbs. You know what happens when you put the sponge in the water, and it sucks up all the stuff. But there's still a lot of mess and oil staying behind. At the top, the beach get all covered, so you can imagine all the animals living on the seashore, all those little tidal pools that we get, all those animals get infected. There at the bottom you can see them busy trying to clean up, and there you can see a bird all covered with oil. And what happens is that oil gets stuck to the bird's feathers, and the bird's got this natural layer that's making them waterproof. So when you touch the outside of the birdies, they are all wet because they're in the water. But underneath the surface, closer to their skin, they are quite dry because it isolates the water from the rest of their bodies. But when they get covered with the oil, it's taking that layer away, it's damaging that layer. So they are all covered, they messed up, they filled up with this grease. They can't breathe, they can't fly. Of course, we did prey and birds, and they will fall into the trap of many animals. So there's so many dangers involved with that. So they need to be cleaned up, and that's not such an easy task. Not everybody can do it. So if something like that happened, they always ask volunteers to come and help. And the people are very eager because they love these animals and they love the wildlife, and they really want to help. But it's a really difficult job, and it's time consuming. You have to sit and with that one bird at a time and clean it. Now, if you look at these two pictures, what they use is similar to dishwashing liquid. They fill up containers, not too hot, not too cold. And first they inspect the birdies to see if there's anything that causes, that harmed them, if there's any broken bones or anything that got hurt, so they can fix it. And when the temperature is just right, they put in the little birds and they start to wash it. Now you may ask, but why is there so many buckets? Now they first clean it, put it in the first container, and they start to wash it. Now you know the reason why they use something like sunlight liquid is because when you do your dishes and it's greasy stuff on the plates, it will dissolve the fatty stuff on the pots and pans and plates, and you can get it clean. And that's the same ingredient that they use to do that. And then they will move the bird to the next. Just checking if I don't have my picture upside down. And then they will move it to the next bucket and keep on cleaning it. That's why they have all these different buckets, because they need to make sure it's properly cleaned. And then they need to rinse the birdie, make sure everything, all the soap, because you also don't want to leave the soap, it's not natural. And then they need to dry the birdie, make sure it's nice and warm. And then they give it, sometimes they give it some medicine, or they just give them minerals and nutrients that they use, because they might have been there quite some time and not being able to eat and catch some fish, so they might be quite hungry. There, at the top you will see they even use sometimes a toothbrush to clean the turtles. And when they are all set and clean, they set them free. They're not keeping them and putting them in zoos. We need to put them back in their natural habitat, like we taught you earlier. So all slick on top of the water, when it reaches land, it's a problem for humans. It damages the natural habitat of all the animals living there. So it's a huge problem, and it's caused by people. What we also need to look at is these man-made disasters, and those are the things that we cause as humans. It's our fault. We cause it, and it's our fault that it's there. I might be jumping a little bit around, but if we look at this picture that you have in your workbook, those are things that we as humans do to affect our habitat. The first thing we can look at is factories. Now, if we have factories, there's two problems. There's smoke coming out of factories. Now, luckily, we live in Walvis Bay, and we don't see all the smoke. There's places in America and China and all those cities that's got huge factories, and there's all the smoke coming from the factories. Can you see the smoke there? People can't see. Some of the people have never seen the sun and the moon properly because there's always smoke in the air, and that's pollution, and we causes it. Another thing that people do is all the waste of the factories they pump into lakes and rivers, and I mean that's dangerous chemicals and things that can kill the animals and the bird life in the river. Another thing that we have is we dump our rubbish. We have a place of the municipality where we go and dump our rubbish. Now what they do is they use bulldozers and they cover it and they try to use it again. But you can imagine, we're a small town in Walvis Bay, but can you imagine the waste that you get in a city like New York? They even have small islands where they dump all their waste. I mean, the waste need to go somewhere, and it's all man-made stuff. That's why we keep on asking people, use stuff that can degrade. It means can break up into little pieces, and later on we won't find it again. But if you use glass and plastic, that's causing a big problem for our environment. Cars, our cars, that's giving off this toxic gases. We don't see the effects so much because we live in open space in the desert and close to the sea. But all the gases that's coming out of the exhaust of the car, it's causing huge problems in big cities. Another thing that we do is that the cities have trains. That's also a cause of steam and dust and things coming out, unless they use electrical trains. And then you get animals. Now you will think, oh, that's strange. How can the animals be a danger to our environment? But like for instance in America and also in Australia, they've got these huge animal farms, farms where they have thousands of cows, and not to put it too rudely, is if the cows fart, they give off a certain methane gas, and that is toxic. It's dangerous, and it means it's up there in the atmosphere. It's dangerous. In our houses, the power stations, everything we give off air pollution with toxic waste that's going into the air, and it's all man-made. It's us, and we can make sure that we use rather environmental friendly stuff. But then we get natural disasters. Now, natural disasters means it's something that's happening in the earth, and we don't have any control over it. It's not we causing it. It's just things that happen in nature, and it's a disaster. And one of them, let me just get my books here. One of them is a hurricane. Now a hurricane is when there's a huge wind twirling over the sea and causing the water to be sucked up, and then it spread and go over the land. And it's a big natural disaster that's happening, specifically in America, quite a lot. And everything is just flooded. And they don't have any control. They can just prevent it. Like the oil, if we get an oil spill, we can contain it in this glass, but when it's on the sea, we don't have any control over it. So the same with a hurricane. It's just causing havoc, and it's breaking people's houses, and it's lifting up all the buildings. And America's got all these wooden houses, and everything is just left up in the air and taken. You will see these pictures over there. Tornadoes, that's also a natural disaster. It's huge, and none of us can prevent it. There's nothing that we can do to stop it from happening. That's a natural disaster. Another thing that we get is a volcano. Now, a volcano is spitting out lava. Now, we think that the lava is causing people to die, but it's actually the dust. Yes, of course, people die when the lava is running down the hill into a village or a little town. But that dust, can you remember the comprehension that we did on that? For weeks after that, the whole air is filled up with the gas and the smoke, and people can't breathe. Can you remember in the comprehension it said that the aeroplanes couldn't fly for quite some time because they can't see, and the smoke and the ash and stuff went into the engines of the planes, so they had to stop all those. So that's also natural disasters. You all have heard about earthquakes. Now, earthquakes happen. The whole surface of the earth is made of plates. We call it tectonic plates. And when they start, and they all separate plates, when they start to move or they shift or they go over each other, they causes all the soil that's above that plates. It causes them to move, and that's why the earth shake, because it's billions of tons of sand above it, and it starts to move, and we get earthquakes. And then it causes a lot of damage to people's houses, to buildings, and it's a natural disaster. It's something we can't prevent. We can, they monitor it always. Luckily, we're staying in Namibia and we don't get earthquakes here, but we get it all over countries like China and America, and they can only monitor it and warn people ahead of time and say there's an earthquake coming, but they can't do anything to stop it. The same time when we get earthquakes, we get those plates underneath the ocean, the surface of the ocean, and those plates start to move. Now, you can test it in the bath. When you sit still, and the surface of the water is totally still, and then at the bottom of the bath, you start to move your arms like this, and you will see it will have a ripple effect on all the water above it, and suddenly everything will start to move at the top of your water, and that is what causes a tsunami. Now, I have that picture of a tsunami over there, and it's not like a big tidal wave. It means all the water above the tectonic plates start to move, and it makes this huge, all the water pulls back on the surface, and then it pushes all over the country, and it covers just everything. I mean, millions of people die, and it's nothing we can do to stop it. We affect the world in so many ways. We don't always think about it. One of the things in your book, you will have a worksheet like this, where you have to say which one of these things can be matched to the pictures. Now, I quickly just want to explain. One of them is this boat, the speeding boat, and that is air pollution, noise pollution. Now, this sounds weird. It is, for instance, if you're trying to sleep and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and your neighbors is having a party. Now, that noise causes you to not be able to sleep. If people, it's something that annoys me quite a lot. if people are driving with these cars and it's just the whole car is bumping with all the noise coming out of the car, it's a noise that's not supposed to be there. If they're drilling in the street, it's noise pollution. It's a noise that's not supposed to be there. So everything that's not supposed to be there, that's not natural. When people are putting plastic in rivers or even in our lagoon, there's fewer fish because the fish can't stay there. If we look at this picture, now dams seems quite a natural thing. Although it's man-made, we think, okay, but we need to dam up water, otherwise we can't use the water. Now, say for instance, we have a river coming down, and there's a little village or a little town close to it. You will think, okay, wait a minute, we have water, we can use it. But if we look at this picture, imagine there's a river flowing and it's flowing in that direction. There's a little town. But then if the river is just running all the time, or certain times of the season there's less water, the people decide, wait a minute, let's build a dam there. So we can dam up the water, and then we have water supply for those times when the river is not running that strong or when there's no rain. So it seems like quite a clever thing to do. But what's happening on this side? This is now causing a teeny tiny stream, although there's sluices. I don't know if I pronounce it now correctly. When they open the gates of the dam and they release some of the water when the dam is getting to full, like they did in the Hardap Dam. But there's a small thin stream coming on this side. What about all the people staying on this side? What about the fish? What about the animals that's using those water? Then there's going to be less fish on that side, less grazing for the animals. So when people are doing that, they really need to make a good study to make sure that they don't change the environment and the habitat of the animals. If you look at this picture of the cows, it's not a problem that they're giving up certain gases in this case, but it means they're eating the they graze on the pastures, and if there's so many cows on one spot, they're going to eat up all the grass, and then there's not enough for them again. So the farmers need to rotate the animals and move them to different parts on the farm, so that there's a time where the grass can grow again and it can get back to their natural state, and in the meantime the cows can graze somewhere else. So there are all things that we can use. We can go and fish. We can fish in the sea. We can go and catch fish, but they need to have a law to make sure that people don't catch all the fish. So we can use our natural resources, but we need to take care that we don't overuse it or that we mess it up. Bottom line is, we have natural disasters, we have human-made disasters, and the human-made disasters are things that we really can try to take care of, being more aware what we do with our environment, and help wherever we can to keep our planet safe. And I think this is now an amazing time for us to think about all this stuff that we are doing at the moment. How can I change my whole attitude, and how can I save energy? How can I take care of the whole environment and be more alert on not causing any pollution and making a mess of our wonderful planet Earth that we've got. Okay, I hope you guys enjoy it. I think everything that you need to know about the science for this week will be in your little book, and I think our little discussion is just awkward to have this discussion, and you guys are not putting up your hands asking questions and want to tell us a little story. It's just me having to chat, talking to the camera, so it's quite awkward. So I can't wait to see you guys again. Keep safe, keep well, and we'll talk again later. Bye bye.